O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of the dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appears and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, O hear the angel voices. O night divine, O night when Christ was born. Please be seated. Welcome to the awe and the wonder of this holy night of nights, the night when we gather to tell and remember the sacred story of Jesus' birth, of the Savior's coming into the world and the hope that he brings. Like all good stories, Jesus' nativity story features a whole cast of characters, each with their own unique perspective of the sacred event. One way that we can enter the story is to imagine ourselves as one of the characters and to try to see the story through their eyes. To imagine, if you will, what their experience was and how they felt. How might it have been for Mary, a young woman far from the comforts and the safety of her family and her home, to give birth to her first child in the presence of animals in a barn? How was she feeling? What were her concerns? Holding her newborn son in her arms as she wrapped him in bands of cloth, what did she see when she gazed into the face of this child? What might she have imagined for his life or for her own as his mother? Imagining what it is and was to stand in Joseph's shoes, we might see him deeply faithful, a deeply faithful man doing his best to do the right thing, to honor his fiancée and to honor their child to come. How might it have felt to learn that your fiancé was expecting a baby when you haven't even yet come together in marriage? How did he hold this holy mystery? And how did his faith inform his responses to it? How might his life have been changed through this experience? When we think of the shepherds and the angels, images of our Christmas pageant come to mind. But let's pause a moment as we try to place ourselves in their shoes. Perhaps as shepherds, we might have known ourselves to be the people who are set aside from the mass population, those set apart from the center of society, living on the margins, with work that nobody else wants to do, and with little comfort. What might it have been like for the shepherds in the quiet stillness of the starlit night to be disrupted by a bold and loud breaking in of God's messengers, a first-century paranormal experience? How might we react to such a message and an invitation if it were to happen to us today? Do we imagine that the shepherds would have been shocked or confused? And if so, how did those feelings then evolve into the curiosity and wonder that was significant enough to have them leave their fields and go to Bethlehem to see if it was true? And what about the angels? How did they feel about their heavenly calling to share the good news of Christ's coming? Do we imagine that they were excited Or did they worry that maybe the message wouldn't get heard right? Or maybe that the shepherds wouldn't even respond? How could the angels help them to understand? As we, in our wondering, find points of connection with each of these characters, with Mary and Joseph and with the shepherds and with the angels, we may find this year that we most intimately find connection with the weary world into which Jesus was born. The world into which he has come is one of strife and challenge. God's occupied people feel the deep heaviness of the empire's power and the tug of its greed. They are displaced, they are suffering, and some are hopeless. They're longing for and waiting for God to come and save them, to bring restoration and for peace. Living in the weary world is hard. The past 2 years have taken their toll on us emotionally, physically, socially, and even spiritually. In our present moment, we live between anticipation and apprehension, with daily uncertainty about which one to lean into. As Christians, we anticipate the promise given through Christ's birth, the promise that beyond this particular difficult moment, there is hope. As human beings, we anticipate that this virus will end, and that one day soon we will be free to resume the connected life that we crave and that we want and that we need. And as people who love and care for our neighbors, for those on the margins, we anticipate the time when the souls of all people will know their worth, when all the souls of the world will feel their worth. And yet, apprehension persists. We worry. We worry about the future, about the unknown. We worry that this virus won't go away. We worry that people will continue to hurt one another senselessly, and that the systems and the institutions of our world will never, ever stop putting their profits and their thirst for power ahead of the call to do justice and to bring equity. We may be uncertain how to go forward in faith, and how to trust what we cannot know or see. And some of us might even wonder if this call on Christmas Eve to sing joy and to herald God's goodness is just another broken record playing over and over again with nothing to show for it. We may wonder, where is the hope? And so we are here. Look at us, we're here, we're gathered. We're gathered together on this holy night. We have come, you and I, because we need and we want hope. The hope that is found in the Christ child, like the hope we feel when we turn and gaze up at the sky and we see a bright star that's beckoning us home. The hope that comes forth because God chose to enter our human realm of existence so that we might dispel our distrust and disbelief and be able to trust God's love for us. That we might even trust God when the world feels broken, when we and the world feel weary, when things are hard, when diseases run rampant and suffering is too commonplace and the future is uncertain. But God breaks in like a child in a manger. God breaks in and illumines, lights our pathway forward and shows us the way. On this holy night of nights, we have come to have our hearts filled and our hope renewed. We come to sit in awe and wonder of God's love for us. We come to bask in the mystery of candlelight and companionship with one another. We come to receive him still. And we come to welcome Jesus into our hearts with hope. And then, with hearts full of hope and restored hope, the real work of Christmas begins. In the words of African-American theologian and poet Howard Thurman, when the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and the princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, and to make music in the heart. May the hope of the newborn Christ fill your hearts and minds with the love of God this Christmas and all.